The final week of January 2026 brought American Airlines to its knees, in a way no one could have predicted. What began as a routine winter forecast quickly spiraled into a crisis of historic proportions, catching even the most seasoned airline professionals off guard. A colossal winter storm swept across the U.S., unleashing relentless snow, ice, and freezing winds that crippled the airline's most vital hubs. Airports that usually buzzed with activity fell eerily silent as runways disappeared beneath thick blankets of snow. What started as a weather warning escalated into the largest disruption in American Airlines history. The storm's intensity and duration shattered records, and the airline's operations ground to a halt as cancellations mounted by the hour. Over a single weekend, the airline canceled thousands of flights, eventually totaling 9,000. The scale of the shutdown was staggering, with ripple effects felt across the entire country and beyond. The storm's vast reach overwhelmed even the most advanced scheduling systems, leaving travelers and crews stranded nationwide. Passengers faced endless lines, missed connections, and uncertainty, while flight crews found themselves stuck far from home, unable to reach their next assignments. While other carriers like Delta and United faced issues, Americans' cancellations dwarfed theirs, exposing a unique vulnerability. The airline's heavy reliance on a handful of major hubs made it especially susceptible to a storm of this magnitude. The storm struck multiple key hubs at once, creating a logistical nightmare with no easy solution. With so many critical airports paralyzed, the usual backup plans simply weren't enough. Americans' ability to reroute planes, reposition crews, and rebook passengers collapsed, leading to a system-wide meltdown. The airline's support teams worked around the clock, but the sheer volume of disruptions made recovery nearly impossible in the short term. The event was quickly dubbed a perfect storm, a brutal convergence of bad weather and bad luck. News outlets across the country reported on the chaos, and social media was flooded with stories of stranded families and exhausted staff. The scars from this crisis would linger, forcing the airline to confront its deepest operational weaknesses. For American Airlines, the winter of 2026 would become a turning point, a stark reminder of how quickly the skies can turn from routine to catastrophic, and how resilience is tested in the face of the truly unexpected. At the storm's epicenter was Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, one of the busiest and most vital aviation crossroads in the world. As the snow and ice swept in, DFW became ground zero for a crisis that would ripple across the entire nation's air travel network. This was American Airlines' largest hub, the operational heart of the company, where thousands of flights connect every day and millions of passengers pass through each year. The airport is not just a stopover, it's the nerve center that keeps the airline's vast network running smoothly. But as the winter storm intensified, the airport, home to a third of Americans' employees, was paralyzed by a relentless sheet of ice. Runways became slick and dangerous, ground equipment froze solid, and the usual hum of activity was replaced by an eerie silence. With DFW completely shut down, flights from around the world suddenly had nowhere to land. Domestic connections crumbled, leaving passengers stranded and schedules in disarray. The domino effect was immediate and devastating. Hundreds of aircraft sat idle on the tarmac, their engines silenced by the storm. What was once a bustling hub now resembled a frozen parking lot, with planes lined up as far as the eye could see, unable to move. The chaos didn't stop at DFW. 5 major hubs, including Charlotte and Chicago, were battered by the same relentless weather, leaving American Airlines with no safe havens to reroute flights or recover operations. Dispatchers and operations teams scrambled to find solutions, but every contingency plan failed as the storm's reach grew. The usual playbook for disruptions was useless when every major hub was under siege. Standard recovery plans failed. There was nowhere to shift operations. The interconnected web that usually allowed for flexibility now became a trap, with every route blocked by weather or gridlock. Employees faced chaos both at work and at home. Treacherous, ice-covered roads made commuting dangerous, while widespread power outages left many without heat or light, compounding the crisis and testing everyone's resilience. Pilots and staff struggled just to reach the airport, braving hazardous conditions and long, uncertain journeys. The staffing nightmare deepened as more and more employees were unable to report for duty. The storm didn't just freeze infrastructure, it struck at the airline's people. Staff huddled together for warmth and support, doing their best to help passengers and each other through the ordeal. The siege of DFW revealed just how vulnerable a vast interconnected system can become when its core is hit. The ripple effects were felt far beyond Texas, disrupting travel plans and business across the country. For American Airlines, this was more than just a logistical nightmare. It was a wake-up call about the risks of hub dependency and a stark reminder of how quickly nature can bring even the mightiest operations to a standstill. As passengers scrambled for answers, Americans' flight crews faced their own ordeal. Pilots and flight attendants were stranded in unfamiliar cities, with no flights home and overwhelmed support systems. Communication broke down. Crews waited hours on hold for instructions or hotel arrangements. Many spent nights in airport terminals, unable to secure rooms as hotels filled up. These scenes of exhausted crews sleeping in public became a symbol of the collapse. The union reported pilots stuck in terminals or placed in substandard hotels, deepening frustration. The ordeal left crews feeling abandoned, raising serious concerns about safety and morale. For many, trust in the company was shattered. The storm hit a workforce already simmering with frustration. For many American Airlines employees, the blizzard was just the latest in a long line of challenges. Even before the first snowflake fell, staff were already feeling the strain of years spent working under difficult conditions, with little sign of improvement on the horizon. Years of lagging financial performance had left Americans' employees earning less than their peers at Delta and United. Paychecks were a constant reminder of the gap, and many workers felt undervalued and overlooked. The sense of falling behind was especially acute as they watched colleagues at other airlines receive better compensation and more robust benefits. The crisis brought pay disparities and resentment into sharp focus. Conversations in break rooms and airport lounges turned tense, as staff vented their frustrations and questioned how much longer they could keep going under such conditions. As crews waited for help, news of a modest profit-sharing payout landed, far less than rival airlines. The announcement, meant to boost morale, instead deepened the sense of disappointment. Many employees felt the payout was a token gesture, failing to recognize the sacrifices they had made. For stranded employees, it felt like a slap in the face. They were left to manage angry passengers, long hours, and uncertainty, all while feeling unsupported by those at the top. The combination of operational chaos, pay gaps, and poor communication pushed morale to a breaking point. Stress levels soared as staff struggled to keep up with the demands of the crisis, often without clear guidance or adequate resources. Unions became vocal critics, blaming years of underinvestment in crew support. They called for immediate action, demanding that management address not just the current crisis, but the deeper issues that had been ignored for too long. The storm was the trigger, but the roots of the crisis ran much deeper. It exposed long-standing problems that had been festering beneath the surface, problems that could no longer be ignored. For many, it was proof that management had failed its frontline workers. The events of the storm became a rallying cry for change, as employees demanded respect, fair pay, and real support from those in charge. Desperate to recover, American Airlines turned to a rare and costly measure: premium pay for pilots. With crews stranded or out of position, the airline offered a hefty bonus for pilots to pick up unassigned flights. This emergency incentive was a clear sign of how dire the situation had become. The move helped fill critical gaps and speed up recovery, but it came at a steep cost. Unions saw it as an admission of management failure, a patch for a problem that better planning could have prevented. The premium pay was necessary, but it underscored the breakdown of the airline's operational plan. It was a costly lesson in the price of unpreparedness. As the crisis unfolded, two narratives emerged, one from frustrated unions, the other from management. Union leaders blasted the company for long hold times, poor lodging, and a lack of support, promising formal grievances. Flight attendants described exhaustion and stress, highlighting the human cost of the breakdown. Management, meanwhile, projected calm, promising recovery and emphasizing the storm's severity. Public statements focused on restoring normalcy, not on admitting systemic failures. Leadership tied recovery to improving weather, especially in Dallas-Fort Worth. The company framed the event as an unprecedented act of nature, while unions demanded accountability. The gap between these narratives revealed deep divisions within the airline. The financial toll was immediate and severe. 9,000 canceled flights meant lost revenue, missed connections, and mounting expenses. The airline projected a $150 to $200 million hit to first quarter revenue, plus millions more in extra labor and passenger care costs. Recovery required repositioning planes and crews, leading to further inefficiencies and lost revenue. The crisis forced a reduction in planned flying, prolonging the pain. Beyond dollars, the damage to Americans' reputation was real. Images of stranded crews and mass cancellations could drive customers to competitors. The storm's legacy would be felt long after the ice melted. As temperatures rose, American Airlines began the slow process of recovery. Runways cleared and ground equipment thawed, allowing flights to resume. The first priority repositioned stranded planes and crews, often with extra flights just to restore order. By January 29th, most flights were operating, though some delays lingered. Special pay incentives helped fill pilot gaps, and operations staff worked tirelessly to restore the schedule. Passengers finally reached their destinations, and airports returned to normal. Customer service teams worked around the clock to rebook travelers. The sight of planes taking off again signaled the end of the crisis, but the memory would linger. The storm of January 2026 exposed the fragility of modern aviation. Images of stranded crews and exhausted staff became a symbol of operational failure. The crisis revealed the dangers of over-reliance on a single hub and the need for better contingency plans. It also highlighted the importance of employee morale. Trust and respect are as vital as technology. For American Airlines, rebuilding trust with its workforce became as urgent as upgrading its systems. The storm forced a reckoning: how to prevent a repeat collapse. While no airline can control the weather, it can control its preparedness and response. The true legacy of the storm will be measured by the changes made to build a more resilient future.